ladies and gentlemen. We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Friday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys here today. I'm really excited to speak with her and break down everything that she does. You know, we talk about technology a lot in this industry and on this show, but like, how do you go about it? How do you like choose the right one? And then how do you get the team adoption and the buy-in when you start rolling it out after those decisions are made? So with that being said, I have my friend Petra Nenickova on the show. She is with Legacy Supply Chain Services. So Petra, thank you so much for taking the time to join me this morning.
Yeah. Hi, Chris. And thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'm looking forward to this, right? Because it's like, I can only talk about like the current events so much on the show. Like, because I always just have the mindset, Petra, like, it doesn't matter what's going on out there. I have to figure it out. I have to find that solution. And especially when you're self-employed and you're going out there, you're going to be encountered with so many things that operationally and, you know, infrastructure wise of your company, that far supersedes anything about like kind of like what's going on in the market. So I'm really excited to break this topic down today. So Legacy Supply Chain Services, what is it? Bring people up, like, tell us a little bit about the company.
Yeah, so just briefly, so Legacy Supply Chain Services is a 3PL company. We have assets, non-assets, providing warehousing services, transportation solutions, international freight forwarding and customs. And we are operating on both sides of the border, both in the U.S. and in Canada. And we are a growing company, so it's exciting time to be with Legacy. And kind of easing into this topic of the systems, right? So we have a long history. Part of it is also mergers and acquisitions, right? So with every merger acquisition, you get usually a new system in, and then you might end up with a variety of systems across the board, which, you know, causes a lot of noise, right? Like a lack of visibility sometimes hinders as well what you want to do, and so that's where we are.
You mentioned a bunch of different departments out there, right? Like a bunch of different services that you guys do. And, you know, I've been through one merger back when I first started in the industry. And I think I was too young to really understand the importance of change management and process implementation and how complicated that can actually be. And, you know, when you're talking out there, like, yeah, you guys at Legacy have a suite of services that are across the board, but to get all of those systems to talk, to get all of the cross-departmental meshing to happen, that's an overtaking in its own right? And that's why it's like to go in there and especially to choose technology to build that out. I mean, you guys aren't just looking at it from a singular focus, right? So like, how are you guys out there? Like when you're in the discovery phase of a TMS or a piece of technology, what are some of those things that you guys are looking for kind of like early on, especially if you're a business out there and you have multiple different service offerings?
Yes. So early on, it's early on when you have really variety of TMSs and different databases and stuff, and you're finding yourself you know, building reports on spreadsheets, pulling information from like different areas, right? So that alone is like a big undertaking just to build a report, right? Yeah. So basically one of the aspects that we've always looked at, right? So we want to have a consolidated visibility into the data. So is there something that we can implement that will actually address the business needs of the business units that have this problem, and also not only provide the functionality but also provide the visibility, right? So So it's a work in progress, right? But we have been able to consolidate some branches already under the same umbrella of the same system. So multiple systems, right? Like there is still, it's not, I don't even know, Chris, like I don't even know if there is one system that can do it all, right? Like with all the different areas that we cover. I'm not really sure if that would exist unless we built it on our own, right? But I always say wherever you cannot consolidate, then try to at least integrate, right? To get the system talk to one another and share information, and maybe even put a overarching layer over it that will enable the visibility for whoever needs the access, right? Whether it's leadership or whether it's operations, anyone that needs it, or finance. Actually, finance is a big factor here as well.
No, definitely. And, you brought up the build versus buy. And that's a very real conversation, I think, for a lot of companies, kind of across the spectrum too, right? Like, I think a lot of people are like, oh, building technology, that's only what the larger players do. But like, I've actually seen it more on the smaller end where they're like, do we have to build our own stuff? Because we have so many different needs, but we can't find that one thing that kind of like checks all the boxes. So how did you guys decide that, right? Because I mean, I would only assume that was a conversation at some point, especially with multiple different service offerings. Like, hey, do we just build out a master system, or do we buy some that are the most easily integrated across multiple TMSs?
Yeah, so it was not really a conversation that would say, hey, so where do we start? Do we get everything off the shelf, or do we actually invest into our IT department to have everything built together, right? It was more like a mix of all different factors and of all different capabilities that existed already within our company. So we ended up with like a mix, right? So some products or some features are off the shelf, and some we have also invested into development on our own. So you kind of have to leverage what your existing talent already is in the company. I would say that's very important, to know what your people can do within the company. And then also, choosing the right partner, right? So in terms of TMS, if we narrow it down to a TMS, then you want to make sure that you're choosing the right partner that will not just sell you something and implement and lets you go, right, and that's it. And so you want to have somebody who will continue working with you on user adoption, because it doesn't end with the go live, right? That's actually a start of the journey, if you will. And then you want to have someone who will continue working with you and make sure that you're getting what you need out of the system, and also support you and help you figure out solutions, because sometimes not the TMS doesn't necessarily cover every single function, right? So they at least can come up with a solution. Hey, we can do this for you, or if you have the capability, you can maybe address this yourself, or maybe they can recommend a partner, right, that you can add on to your tech stack. So the options are endless, right? But you want to have a good partner that you can discuss these things with.
What, that just makes me think of this. Like, what are some red flags in that? Because like, obviously a company of your guys' size, you guys are probably getting bombarded. I could only imagine what a company of your size sees from like solicitations to sign up with this software or that product and this. What are some of those red flags that you could give to people listening who maybe haven't implemented a piece of technology or a new piece of technology in a while, but they're in the market, that you guys have kind of identified that like, hey, this is not what it seems, right? Like the marketing's great, but like you talked about, if you went through with it, there was no training after the fact. So was there any questions that you guys have kind of formulated in that prospecting discovery phase where you're like, hey, there's probably going to be no after implementation training. That's just what they said, X, Y, and Z.
So in general, I would say like a red flag, so when you start engaging the potential partners, right, in the conversation, I would say define what you really need in the system and what's a potential deal breaker, right? So this shouldn't actually be a very long list. This should be only like a handful of items. But those are absolute deal breakers, right? Whether it's an integration with your accounting system, or whether it's like a integration capabilities, like EDI or API, right? Or if you have some specific local needs, like such as taxes, or need to deal with multiple currencies, for example, Mexican pesos, or if you need Canadian dollars, euros, whatnot. So I would say define those handful, the handful of deal breakers that could potentially, weed out. Actually, not potentially, but they will weed out your providers that just simply cannot do it. If the answer is no, we cannot do it, then there's no point, right? So. And then start narrowing it down. So when you narrow down your providers, then obviously have a list of your business requirements. Mm-hmm. That list can be itself a little bit of a trap as well, right? Because it just seems like the more you think about it, the more it grows, right? Mm-hmm. So it also is worth kind of thinking about separating the wants and the needs, while also thinking, what do I need now, and what am I going to need potentially in future? I don't mean 10 years from now, right? Because who knows how 10 years from now is going to look like. But let's say, so is my customer, like I have, every single transportation solution company out there has a specific customers, and some of them have like maybe sometimes weird requirements, or some of them are more or less standard. Some of them are coming up with really odd, business needs. So so try not to concentrate only on to the specifics that you have now, because they may change, right? And if it's especially be careful about those non-standard ones, right? If it's non-standard, then it may change in future. It may become more standardized, or it may become even less standardized, right? So think about how adaptable that system might be also down the road, right? Like when your business requirements change. What else? And also, more. If we that was we thought about the checklist, but also there is also the business strategy, right? So what is it that you're trying to do? Is your system going to what are you trying to address, right? Are you trying to increase visibility? Are you trying to enhance some features? Are you trying to automate more? So what is it? And you always want to make sure that you're checking yourself, right? Like as you go through the process, because the process is very time consuming, very, it can be a rabbit hole, right? It can pretty much suck you in so much that it's easy to lose sight of what the original purpose was, right? So always do this kind of check, right? Check back. Hey, why did we start this conversation in the first place?
Yeah.
And that will help you also kind of stay on track with, and bring those conversations up with those potential partners, right? Because talk to them ask them, what are typical companies that you serve? What are their business needs? Without obviously revealing anything that's proprietary, but have those conversations, right? And don't be afraid to dig deep. Have deep conversations, because usually it's always that that kind of surface, any demo that you get to, that always looks very rehearsed, right? And rightfully so, because they have to present themselves somehow, right? Somewhere in some certain ways, but try to relate to what you would be doing on a daily basis, and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, right? And dig deep, even to the greatest detail. You don't have to cover every single business requirement in great amount of detail, right? But my colleague used to say the devil's in the details. So do cover at least some amount of detail that will maybe help you reveal some of the lack of functionalities that may be presented to you as, yes, they are there, but as you start clicking through it, you figure out, oh, well, there's too many clicks, there's too much workaround, and there's something that doesn't actually happen by itself, and I have to involve support in it, right? And what would happen if I need to make a change? Usually the changes, right? The changes also are very, very prone to breakdowns, right? Because anything can happen, with no disruptions. If everything goes smooth, then that's all fine. But what happens if you need to, change configuration of the shipment, right? Like if your stops changes, right? Like if you now have a multi-stop shipment, if you now need to, change trucks or change carriers, right? It's like, what happens? How does the system react there?
Yeah. Do you think so? Like, talking about that, it's a good segue into change management, right? Because I think like at some times there's two camps, right? Like there's the people who are out there assessing the technology for the business, and then there's the people who are actually using it in the day to day. So how do you balance that out? Are you bringing in the front line, like the actual daily users of the TMS, right? Like, I think as somebody who uses their TMS every single day, multiple times a day, I want to know everything that it can do, but I also want to make sure, is this going to slow me down, right? Because that's got to be a thing where it's like, yeah, the technology sounds great in the demo, but does it actually cause more work for my team? So how do you get that cross-departmental talking going on? Is it early on in the demoing process?
So it's important at the very beginning of the process. You should define your subject matter experts, right? So think about everyone that's involved in this process. It's a good idea to involve someone who is in the front line of operations, and I'm sure there is, in every company there is going to be that at least one or two people who are going to be more tech savvy and more understanding of of the technology. So identify those, and those are going to be your friends during the process. If you have a project manager, if you actually designate a project manager for this, and the project manager does not necessarily have that hands-on experience, that all the more the subject matter experts are important, right? So you have to balance that as well. But also, I would recommend to also look outside of the subject matter experts and think about all other people that are going to be affected, right? Like finance, for example, your IT. If you have an IT department, then is your IT going to have to be involved in any way, right? Then do you have drivers? If you're asset based, do you have drivers? How is that going to impact them, right? So there is many different stakeholders that you need to take into consideration. But coming back to the change management, right? So now that kind of brings us a little bit more into closer to the implementation, right? Because you're thinking, okay, so people generally don't like change, right? Is it going to slow them down? Well, you need to assess that through the demos, right? Like, are the demos looking like, this, and again, coming back to what are you trying to address, right? Are you looking for more automation or more ease of use? Are you still using spreadsheets that for which you need to finally go into a TMS, or do you have a TMS that's just not user friendly, and you want something else? So you need to talk to people, obviously, right? Make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on. If you have some space, communicate with them, ask them what they want, or if there is any desires that they have compared to the old system, right? Give them a little bit of a also space to voice their opinions. But I would say, as you get closer to the implementation, you need to make sure that the system during the implementation is tested and trained properly. It's it's very easy to just like a watch, like have every provider does it different, right? Some of them do hands-on training where they will schedule workshops. Some of them will give you pre-recorded sessions, right? So make sure you're not just scratching the surface of it. Make sure that there is enough testing done, because that's when you can reveal some of the aspects that may or may not work, right? And then they might need more attention. It makes it a lot less stressful going live, right? When you actually go live and the users are not properly trained, or they don't have enough mileage on the testing environment, then it's going to be a lot more stressful. And the more users you have, right, then the more the more complicated it can be. So I would recommend invest time. And I know in operations it's always time is always a very, very scarce resource. So it's very, very hard to pull the people in. but it really is worth it to invest that time into training and into testing, right? Speaking of, briefly coming back to discovery, make sure that your new provider has a testing environment, because without testing you can't train on production, right? You have to have a testing environment. So make sure you allow all users get into the testing environment, check in with them regularly, give them, the training in little pieces, right? Don't pull them into like a 2-hour session, tell them, hey, this is, from A to Z. Then, then this is what you're going to have to do. No, just break it down into smaller chunks, and then have the people train, right? And try themselves. And the more time you invest into it, and the more energy, the more it's going to pay off at going live, because people are going to have enough mileage, and there is going to be enough situations during the testing that you will come up with that you already will know how to address at go live, and you're not going to have to scramble to troubleshoot, right? So,
do you think that is a miss by organizations out there? Is the ROI of training, right? Because like I look at it as inside of transportation, it's like, we got to go now. We don't have time for anything. Like if we're going to bring on this piece of anything, it better work day one. We better not have any hookups. Otherwise it just creates instant skeptics, right? Because most people hate change. No matter what, they hate change. They want to stay in their box. They want to operate off of their spreadsheet or whatever archaic piece of technology that they're currently operating on. So how do you really emphasize the need for extensive training to show that, it might seem like we're taking one step back, but like we're actually taking 7 steps forward with doing this? Because now that one task where you had to get up and walk to Jan in accounting and hand her that, that physical document, now we can instantly process that invoice. We can get our carriers paid faster and just show the overall time save that it's bringing to an organization.
Yeah. This can be a tough one too for some people, right? Because people generally think that if you do bring some more efficiencies into the software, then they're going to become redundant, which, I understand that. It's a very, very understandable kind of, feeling about change as well. But I would say, you as a, as the implementer, or whoever, if you're the project manager, or if you're the IT professional, or whoever spearheading the implementation, work with the leaders of the related business units and departments, and make sure they understand and they are on board with it, right? That this is really needed, and then they need to then work with their own people to manage this. And that trap of thinking, like, I'm gonna get replaced by this automation.
Yes.
It's easy to kind of start thinking that, but at the same time, like, it's not quite that. Like, what, I can tell you this, that during any of implementations that I've done, we never replaced anyone. It didn't actually, the intention was not to replace anyone. The intention was to allow them to focus on bigger and better things, right? So that they're not actually spending time entering data in, right? Because like, who enters data manually these days, right? Like, there needs to be an import function somewhere somewhere along the lines.
No, I agree. And that's
right?
like, that's kind of my thing, right? Like, I look at technology and automation as like, how much more work can I do, right? Like, how much more freight can I move with less steps? Like, that's just where my mindset is at with all of this stuff. And that's what I'm most excited about is like, how do I find that piece of technology that can service all of my customers from across the board, right? Like, you probably understand this just as well as I do. Not every shipper out there needs EDI or API connectivity to operate with them, but how do we give them that level of automation down to that small to mid-sized shipper that maybe still does operate off of a spreadsheet? And then you choose the right piece of technology within your TMS. Maybe it's automatic updates, automatic quotes, something like that, that it shows that you're investing in your customer, i.e. the shipper, in that moment when you onboard a new piece of technology for your company, the transportation company.
Yes, definitely. So to kind of build on that, right? So what do you do after go live, right? So now, like, we implemented successfully, let's say, we tested successfully. Everybody's trained, everybody's happy, right? Well, maybe not, but
No,
you
no,
hope everybody's happy. So
majority.
the go live comes on, you go live. So again, like in terms of the change, coming back a little bit to the change management, right? And going into the go live. So also make sure that you have the basics covered, right? And if you have a new technology that is supposed to do like amazing things that you've never really had before, unless it's like a super need, on the day one where like it's a core function, if then yes, of course that's a different story. But if it's something, if it's a bell and a whistle, right? So that doesn't necessarily need to happen on day one, the 1 minute, right, of going live. So concentrate on what's the easy stuff, right? So how do I dispatch a driver? How do I book a load? How do I send the rate confirmation? How do I change this? How do I update an appointment, right? So make sure you have these basics covered. And then, as the dust starts settling, users are starting to get used to this, the new system, new environment, they get familiar, right? That's when you can go back and regroup. Oh, I would always recommend regroup, periodically with the users. Make sure check in, make sure they're comfortable, they know what they're doing, their needs are covered, and then say, okay, now we have this system. It's supposed to do this as well, in addition to the basic functions. So let's try this. Let's take a look, right? And it's an ongoing process because your provider will also continue enhancing their features, right? Every TMS out there releases new updates, right? Like some of them every month, some of them 3 times a year, right? Whatever the frequency is, stay close to those. Work with your customer success managers, right, with your provider, and ensure that you're actually staying in tune with the new features, because there might be more bells and whistles down the road, right?
And as this flew by, see that I love talking about this stuff a lot, because this is something that I think every organization out there, Petra, is dealing with in some capacity. So as we're kind of wrapping up here today, for the companies that, from your perspective, that are like maybe they're failing at digital transformation, right? What is an area that they should look at? Is it they're afraid they're going to buy the wrong software, or is it they're ignoring the human side of things internally about like implementing new software?
Mm-hmm. So I would say always look at your end game, right? Like, what is it that you're trying to do, and then work with your people and with your providers that you either have or looking to contract, right? So the communication, I would say, be very clear in what you want, and be very clear about that with your people, internally and externally with your providers, and make sure that you get all your questions answered, right? That's pretty much what I would end with.
No, it is. I think it's there's so much stuff that's coming at every freight company, and well, just really every company in general right now when it comes to automation and technology. And I feel like at times it's, you said what you said earlier about the want versus need. I think that is, I would say, as somebody who looks at technology for their business, I'm like, how do we improve? It's like, it is that want versus need. And especially if you have a budget to operate off of, which a lot of companies do, right? Like, do you actually need it, or is that just something that you want? And if you do need it for your company, what is the ROI that you are going to see on that? And I think, like, if you go out there and you can explain that properly to your operations team or your sales team or finance or whomever, again, everybody's got their own comfort levels of how they operate in, and change is going to always be scary to a large majority of people out there, no matter what. So I look at it is like the faster you can explain to people, like, hey, this is the direction that we're going. This is the training that we are going to give each and every one of you, because we want you to be bought into this. We don't want you to think that we're replacing you or we're causing more work for you. We want your input on that. To me, it sounds like that's seemingly a winning strategy for people to utilize out there.
Yeah, agreed. 100% agreed. Communication, right? Comes down to communication, but that's in general, right? Not just technology, but in general, any successful company that operates out there, I'm sure, agrees with me that communication is the biggest piece in it, right? Because if everybody knows where the company's heading, if everybody knows what's going on, then it's a lot easier to get people's buy-in.
No, I agree. Petra, thank you so much for your time this morning. How does anybody reach out to you if they want to find, maybe they got questions about legacy. Maybe they just got questions because they're like, hey, we're about to undertake everything we talked about on this show. How do they reach out to you to find out more?
Oh, sure. So our company website, www.legacyscs.com. So there will be some contacts there, and my email, my LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. My email, I'm not really sure if I want to.
Yeah, no, we'll just connect with you on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll go with that. And if you guys can't find Petra or Legacy out there, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them. But that is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank it on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey.